Smoke, how you liking that new chair, man?
Good. I'm just getting adjusted to my back.
Yeah.
I had to put some extra what you call it?
I'm listening. Go ahead.
Pillow stuff on it and all to make it more comfortable and all that. But it's getting there. It's getting there.
Hey, I might have an extra like pillow that I have for a chair that I don't really use.
Okay.
It's like black and white hair. Yeah.
We're live now?
Yeah, let us know when that link is up there.
Attention, you are now tuned in to Pass the Controller.
Game on. Round table, show me your moves.
Now these moves get good and get in the groove.
Gears of war like Sonic hop in the tuck.
You don't want the smoke, you'll get bodied by big nuts.
Come for the character, stay for the content.
Fans from the elite to the civic binding.
Conventions are streamed, the topics deceased.
Tell them tune in, peace and hair grease.
Let's go, baby.
Peace and hair grease.
Pass that, pass that, pass that, pass the controller. Pass that, pass that, pass that, pass the controller. Pass that, pass that, pass that, pass the controller. Pass that, pass that, pass that, pass the controller.
That's right, we are back with another episode, with a special episode. We don't do 2 episodes a month, man, usually, man, but we had to get this man here. As you can see from my co-host, man, they're rocking the gear. I didn't have the gear, I just had the socks, man. So listen, I can wear the socks. It's not a feet show, But this is Pass the Controller. Oh my goodness, he had the mug as well too. Listen, he's trying to show off. This is Pass the Controller. You know who this is. My name is Mark Knuckles Carter. McNucks to all of you gamers out there. Listen, respect your gaming elders. Before we get into our special guest, we got to go to the two co-hosts as well, man. We got my man rocking the N7 black shirt with the shiny head. Civic, what's up with you, man?
The shiny head. Sorry, I'm still saving up for my Knuckles hat there. Anyway, what's going on? What has two thumbs and plays Mass Effect? This guy. Oh, look at my thumb. It's all. Anyway, I'm your boy Civic Minded. We're here with Mark Meer today. And before we get to Mark, we want to toss it back to my man over here, Eric the Smoke Moran, the man, the myth, the legend. Take it away, Smoke.
What's going on, everyone? It is the Hall Monitor, the final boss in every stage of every game that you ever played. I am here, the master, the myth, the legend himself. Today, we have the honor of having a man who's accomplished so much as an actor. He's an improver. He's based out in Canada. This man has done it all. From a legendary cosplayer, legendary actor, and one of his crowning achievements, besides everything that he's done in the world, is being one of the most recognizable characters in the video game history. This man is a legend. And I say legend. I don't often use that term. There's certain things I keep as legend. This man right here is a legend in the video game industry, in the video game world. This man is the voice of Commander Shepard in the trilogy from Mass Effect. And we got so many questions to ask him. And ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, I introduce to you the man, the true myth, the true legend, the man that says it all in 2 words, Mark Meer. What's going on, Mark?
Hey, yes, thank you very much for having me back. Very good to see you. Yes. And thank you for, I don't know if I've ever experienced that level of hype in an introduction. So thank you. I really do appreciate it.
I think his time is almost up at this point.
So I got to go, but thank you. I should go.
Thanks, everybody. Good night. Nice. Yeah.
But thank you. Yes. Thank you so much. I'm thinking it was about 2 years ago now, because we've all lost a year, that I was with you guys in Philadelphia.
Yes.
That's right.
And in fact, you and I were hosting the cosplay contest together.
That's right.
In our traditional cosplay gear and everything else.
As Baron Blood and Frankenstein Agent of Shade.
Yes. And we had so much fun to a point where you're even in our intro for Pass the Controller for our theme song. And again, Mark, you know, we wanted to bring you back on the show because we know we had you on for a short time and we got you here for a short time. So I'm going to get right into it. I want to start from the beginning. Before everything that happened with Mass Effect and everything, I want to know more, and the people out there want to know more about Mark Meer. Talk to me how you got started in your career.
Well, I think my very first start, like the first acting, the first improv I ever did was, funnily enough, Dungeons and Dragons. That was where I learned how to improvise. That was sort of my first introduction to acting, especially when you were a dungeon master playing multiple characters all at the same time. And I happened to go to school in a very small town that didn't really have a drama program either. So that was essentially my entire training, at least in the high school. I think that really is what led me down this path ultimately. So thank you, Dungeons and Dragons. I do appreciate it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And then from there, when you got in the Dungeons and Dragons, how did that take you to the next level? Like what steps did you go through from there going into theater? Like what, like for you, what was the steps that you had to take to get there to that point?
Well, as I mentioned, so playing Dungeons and Dragons was my first experience. I played with people who were big fans of sketch comedy and Monty Python and SCTV. So our games tended to be of a humorous nature, and often, as anyone who's been a dungeon master knows, you really do have to improvise because your players might do anything, literally anything they could think of. So you have to be able to think on your feet and go like that. So when I moved from the small town that I was raised in to the big city of Edmonton, that was the big city, and that's where I currently reside, I did get involved in improv, and that was due to something called the Teen Festival of the Arts, and that was a yearly festival where they cast teens in established plays by established playwrights, new plays rather by established playwrights. And I worked with a group called Three Dead Trolls and a Baggie, who were a local comedy troupe. And they actually had their own show on CBC, which is our national television station up here. And they were fantastic. They were great mentors, and they were the ones that actually introduced me to improv proper. And that's when I started working with a group called Rapid Fire Theater here in Edmonton that I'm still a member of. And they're actually, funnily enough, things come full circle. Rapid Fire Theater is the group that produces my improvised Dungeons and Dragons show, which I've had the good fortune to do not only here in Canada, but all over the world, in London for their annual improvathon. I've done it down at Dad's Garage Theater in Atlanta many times. And in fact, Dad's Garage now has their own improvised Dungeons and Dragons show. I'll take some credit for being the founder of that, but they're a fantastic bunch, and they're as a weekly show, it's gone by leaps and bounds. Obviously, we're not doing quite as many shows currently, but there have been a lot during the pandemic. We've done some improv shows with Colin Mockery from Whose Line Is It Anyway, actually, as a guest. Colin was very nice to come and do the live shows with us, and subsequently, now we've been doing shows over Zoom. But he still is a good sport, and cobbles together a cleric costume so that we can play in costume online.
I want to see that so badly, man. Let me ask you something real quick, Mark. With improv, man, because I try to dabble a little bit of improv myself as well too. But with improv, did that come naturally to you, or did you have to learn that, or what was it like? Was you born with think on your feet?
Yeah. I mean, everyone starts with a certain amount of one might say inborn improvisational ability, but in a lot of cases, improv is about unlearning bad habits, saying no to something just because it's like, oh, I'll get a laugh here, rather than advancing the story, rather than working with your fellow players to make the scene work. And if everybody is trying to make everybody else look good, then everybody looks good. That's one of the prime rules of improv, almost as important as saying yes. And now when I moved to the city, as I say, improvisation is what I started in. BioWare was just starting out at that point. And I was lucky enough to get in on the ground floor with BioWare when they were still doing the old cattle call auditions, where it's just like, everybody show up, do a bunch of voices, we'll let you know. And I was one of the people who was fortunate enough to get a call back. And again, speaking of things coming full circle, some of the very first video game voice work I did was on Dungeons and Dragons based games like Baldur's Gate 2. That was my very first game. I did a bunch of the DLC for that, Throne of Ball, and subsequent games like Neverwinter Nights and things like that. And so by the time Mass Effect came along, I'd already been working with BioWare for quite a number of years, usually doing monster voices and antagonists and things like that. I was actually asked on to the project at very, very early stages. Like, I was working on alien sound sets, like what typical aliens would sound like. They sort of brought me in to put together a package for presentation as what does a typical Solarian sound like? What does a Krogan sound like? All of these things. And during that process, I got asked to audition for Commander Shepard. And we know how that turned out, because here I am.
So when you go to an audition like that, do you go in sort of like with a repertoire of like, hey, this is what I can do. Here's this voice X, this is my voice Y, Z. Or is it more like they say, okay, fit this character. How do you think they sound? Or is it like an amalgam?
Well, again, now this is not typical to what the current situation is. This was like back in the 90s. So this was a few decades ago. Right. When I went into that first edition, it was just spaghetti at the wall. It was just like, here's all the different voices and accents I could possibly do. And I do know for a fact that that's not really the way that it's approached now. It's usually like, we're looking for a specific character. We want to hear your natural voice, as opposed to here's all the weird character voices I can do. But again, for me, it was early days, as I say. So I just went, I can do this voice and this voice and this voice. Here's a bunch of accents. Here's all the stuff I can do. Here, they had some set lines that we read. I, just tried various different takes. And whatever I did seem to pay off, because, as I say, I got cast in that first game. Though I should mention, I got cast as a character who had one line in the final cutscene. So, but they liked that line. They liked that line well enough that they just kept hiring me subsequently for pretty much everything they worked on.
Do you find that you're more comfortable when you're doing improv or when you have something that's scripted?
They each have their own rewards. Like I certainly enjoy doing plays and I enjoy working on scripted material, but there is a certain freedom to improv because you're creating something out of nothing. And whether you're doing that, because I have done solo improv shows, but I really do prefer the interaction with other players, and together you collectively build a narrative. And the audience is part of that too, because of course you're taking suggestions. And even when you're doing a show, we do some shows where we get one suggestion at the top of the hour and then we improvise an entire play from that. Even when you're only getting one suggestion from the audience, their interplay really informs what's going on. So yeah, I'm very much missing live performance given the current state of the world, and hopefully we can move towards perhaps having shows at theaters again. Go on.
I was just gonna say I don't think that Zoom calls are very conducive to comedic timing.
It can be difficult. I have done quite a bit of improv over Zoom during the more than you would have think over the pandemic.
Nice.
We also last summer group that I work with here in town. It's me and another guy, Don, and working. We have a group called Atomic Improv, and for a while, in the early days of the pandemic, or well, not so early, like last summer, when especially up here, things were the restrictions were a little looser. We were doing outdoor shows, so audience was of course socially distanced and wearing masks and that sort of thing. But at least we had amplification, and we didn't have to shout either because we had headset mics. So we were being careful about that. But that was really nice to actually perform in front of a live audience, even if they were spread out over the size of a soccer field or something like that. They were nice. That was nice. And also, I have done some corporate improv over Zoom, and it is a different set of skills, certainly. But artists change and adapt, and right now we've been forced to adapt to these circumstances.
So let me ask you this: what kind of rituals do you have to go through in order to get prepared on the mic and doing improv? Because as an actor myself, who's got to get ready for a script or who's doing voice work, what do you do to get prepared when you're doing something like what you've been doing for video games as well as doing improv? What do you do mentally or physically to get yourself prepared?
Well, voice work, certainly you want to do a vocal warm-up. You want to, your voice is your instrument. You, of course, want to be able to get into the session, be ready to go right away, because time is usually a concern in these things. Also, you're not usually going to have a lot of prep time when you're working on video games. It's very rare that you will actually get your script ahead of time, especially when you're working on AAA games. You arrive, you get your script, you might have a little while to look it over, you'll be able to talk with the director about it, but mostly you're hitting the ground running. And that's where improv really comes in handy, actually, because being able to drop immediately into character, being able to be in the moment, that's very necessary, I find, when doing video game voice work. And as far as improv shows, it will depend on the kind of show that you're doing. If you're doing, like, say, a short form show, especially if it's people that you haven't necessarily worked with a lot before, you might want to play a few improv games to warm up together beforehand. I always used to joke that my warm up was having a cigarette in the alley behind the theater before the show. But it's a little more involved in that.
Okay. So as far as like, how do you get into character? Like, if like I know sometimes they'll give you like improv, you just go for broke. Like basically it's whatever comes. But for you, like for Mass Effect or Baldur's, or how do you get prepared to like prepare yourself for that character? Like what do stages you have to go through?
Well, of course, as I said, you're not going to have a lot of prep time. You might have a general idea of the kind of character that you're going to play. Mostly it's going to be working with the director. And sometimes I was fortunate enough, especially during the recording process for Mass Effect, to also have like either a direct line to the writers at BioWare, or sometimes they would be in the room. Like Mac Walters, for example, sat in on some of my sessions. And so he was able to give direct feedback. There was no going through layers of communication. It was just like, oh, Mac, you wrote this. Can you tell me exactly what is going on in the scene and what the intention is here? And so, yeah, that was a real gift to be able to actually have the writer in the room. For the most part, it is going to be interplay between you and the director. So and like anything else, like improv, it's giving offers, and the director of course, unlike improv, the director is not always going to say, yes, that's a brilliant idea. They're going to go, oh, okay, let's try that. Let's see how that sounds. It's like, okay. Well, and then they might have some notes to alter your performance, or maybe you're on the wrong track completely. They might say, let's turn the page on that. Let's start fresh with something else. Or they might just give you a few notes to slightly alter your performance. And I was fortunate enough to work with some great directors at BioWare, Shauna Perry, Caroline Livingstone. I worked with her mostly on 2 and 3. And yeah, Caroline is amazing. She worked with a lot of the actors in the UK and the US as well, and she was amazing. And I was fortunate enough that Caroline is someone that I'd worked with as an actor. Like, we'd been in productions together, so we knew each other going in. So that was really handy.
Now, you got a chance to work with an ensemble cast. For you, like, what people do you like working with, or who do you admire in the industry as far as voice actor, or just actors in period? Like, who do you admire as far as working with, or had a dream idea of wanting to work with someone in the industry that you admire, that inspired you to like do what you're doing now?
Well, if you're talking favorite voice actors, I think my faves are going to be the same as a lot of people. I loved the old Batman animated series. So Kevin Conroy and Mark Hamill, to me, like, they are the real Batman and Joker. And then, everybody else plays them in movies and live action and whatnot. But I think they are the prototypical Batman and Joker. Mark Hamill's voice work is amazing. I really loved a project he did a while ago, which was the audiobook for World War Z. If you've seen the World War Z movie, it's nothing like the book. It's a fine movie in its own right. It's just like, I kind of wish that we had the opportunity to have a movie that actually, is hews closer to the book. But the audiobook is amazing and has an outstanding cast. Not just Mark Hamill. Alan Alda is in it, does a fantastic job. I really recommend you check it out.
Okay.
And then as far as people that I've actually worked with, I was very, very lucky to work with an amazing cast in Mass Effect. Of course, starting with my opposite number, Jennifer Hale, who plays the female Commander Shepard. So that was just a thrill, and somewhat intimidating as well, because Jennifer and Steve Bloom, who's also in the game, who plays Grunt, they are the most prolific voice actors in history in North America anyway. Like, I believe they both have Guinness Book of World Records entries for that. So finding out that Jennifer was going to be playing the female version of Commander Shepard, that was like a very high bar. And as I say, I was a fan of hers from her animation work before we'd ever worked together. And of course, her video game stuff, like I'd played Knights of the Old Republic, the original. I'd actually worked on the original Knights of the Old Republic as well. I did like a lot of the demo stuff here in Edmonton. One thing, I've mentioned this in other interviews, but I was the demo Karth Onasi. So I basically did all his stuff in the demo thing, and I knew it was going to be recast. It ended up being recast with Raphael Sbarge. So Raphael, who plays Caden in Mass Effect, he ended up being the Karth Onasi in game. I always joke that's why I killed him on Vermeer, because he took my gig. No, I'm joking, of course. So yeah, I just an amazing cast. Of course, Martin Sheen as the Elusive Man. That's quite, the greatest fictional U.S. president in, and I've been, of course, a fan of Martin Sheen's for many, many years from his work in film and television. So getting to meet him was amazing. I just happened to be in L.A. when he was recording his final scenes as the Elusive Man, and Caroline actually gave me a call and said, would you like to come into the studio? You're not working today, but would you like to come into the studio and meet Martin Sheen? And I said, yes, of course. And Jennifer was able to be there that day as well. So both of us got to meet Martin Sheen at the same time, and he was amazing.
Nice.
Yeah, I saw the picture. I remember seeing that picture.
Mm-hmm.
So getting, because I know we're limited on time, so I want to finish touching on Mass Effect and then talk about your upcoming projects.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we got the Legendary Edition coming out.
Yes.
Now, how do you feel that now we're celebrating all that work you put in, you, developers, the voice actors and all, to see it come back enhanced and everything else. How does that make you feel?
Oh, I'm really looking forward to seeing what they did. I've seen, you know, like what you guys have seen, like the enhancements to the graphics and whatnot. And mostly I'm really gratified that people who might not have had the chance to play it before, who've only heard about it, will get to play it. And again, there's situations like I believe the first Mass Effect didn't actually come out for whatever PlayStation was out at the time. We put it started the debut title for the PlayStation was Mass Effect 2, and we actually did a little motion comic with Dark Horse that both Jennifer and I narrated to catch people up. So for example, there were some PlayStation players who'd never actually got to experience Mass Effect 1. So I'm really glad that they will get to do that, and that it will be enhanced and updated for the current generation of consoles.
Are you involved in that at all? Will you be doing any kind of like recuts of any work that you've done to voice him? Are they adding anything? Can you give us a little something?
I think that's probably getting into NDA territory. So
Okay.
Gotcha.
Wink, wink.
But I will ask.
I could not say either way. Yeah,
that's okay. That's okay.
But I will ask this question: if they do approach you in the future for another Mass Effect game, would you be open to the idea of doing it again?
No, I'm good. No, of course, yes. Like, nah, that's fine. That's fine. Okay.
You know, fans want to know, like, you know,
of course,
some actors are like, well,
yes.
that was during that time. I'm at a different place now.
No,
so
of course
I want people to know that, because people are like, oh, does he ever want to come back to Mass Effect? And I'm like,
yeah. And if they required my services, I would be happy to provide them. That said, of course, it's, you know, BioWare. For, you know, people were like, oh, aren't you, you know, when Andromeda came out, it's like, aren't you mad that it's not Commander Shepard? It's like, no, it's their story. They got to tell it how they wish, and I am there to facilitate the telling of that story. And you know, video games are such a collaborative art form, and what you're ultimately trying to serve is the story that the developers are trying to tell.
So what kind of head trip is it when you're playing Mass Effect, you specifically, and you're playing as your own character? Is it like this existential head trip to be like, oh my God, that's me? Like
Certainly, yeah. I mean, the first time,
be awesome.
The first time that I popped the original Mass Effect in and played, it was like, yeah, this is quite the trip, you know. And you know, right from when I got cast, getting to be the lead in a game of this size, and beyond that, like Shepard was a fairly revolutionary character in that Commander Shepard was one of the very first, if not the first, player character that was fully voiced, rather than, you know, a block of text coming up and you just pressing a button. So I mean, I've always been told by fans that that's what made it so immersive. And especially hearing it from the spouses of people who played, like often couples would come up, you know, when I'm at conventions and things like that. And, you know, I'd sign the autograph, and, you know, either the husband or the wife would be the one who played, and then their partner would be saying like, oh yeah, you know, I never actually played the game. I never pressed a button, but I watched the entire thing like a movie as my partner played. So yeah.
You know, and that's the other thing, Mark. That's the one thing I want to throw out there. The differences with you compared to a lot of other voice actors is that not only do you celebrate the fans, you also get into character. You also wear the armor of Commander Shepard. And I think that's one of the reasons why a lot of people within the fan community and the groups, I'm part of one of the Mass Effect groups, they embrace you so much because of the fact that it's like you're one of us, you're one of the people, but at the same time, you're where everybody loves to be at, but also you're relatable to a lot of people. How does that make you feel when fans come over to you, tell you how much you affected their life in a positive way, you inspired them? How does that make you feel?
Oh, I mean, it's always very humbling because, like I said, it's a very collaborative art form. I'm a very small piece of that machine that produced this amazing game. So I'm always, as I say, just very grateful to hear those kind of stories. And as you mentioned, like I was a fan before I got this gig. So I went to Comic Cons. I was a cosplayer. And so when David Carpenter, a friend of mine, you know, this was I think this was the very first year I was a guest at Dragon Con. I'd been going since 1998, like as a fan. So my very first year that I was a guest at Dragon Con, which that was very special for me. David Carpenter, a few months before the con, called me up and said, "Hey, listen, I make Mass Effect suits, right?" It's like, "Oh yeah, I've seen them; they're amazing." And that was actually how we met, because I approached him at a con when he was like, "Oh man, hey, I do that voice," and he just said, "Hey, I made you a suit." And so the least I could do was wear it. And it was very, very generous of him, because I know those take a while, and he can certainly charge a lot for them. So yeah, that was the first year that I marched in the parade with the N7 costume group, the Elite. Subsequently to that, I've put together a Vorcha costume. I'm not sure if you've seen that one. My friends at Composite Effects, they did a custom silicone mask for me of the Vorcha, which is amazing. It's really really cool piece on. And I continue to cosplay at pretty much every con I go to, and not just as characters I've played or voiced.
Right.
I'm a member of the superhero costuming forum, and was for many years. So I'd always try to do the big Marvel and DC shoots at Dragon Con. Sometimes friends would just go, "Hey, I got an idea for a walking group." Like, yeah, let's do that. Actually, as a matter of fact, that Baron Blood costume that I wore to host the Philadelphia con with you. Right. We at the last Dragon Con that existed, but before everything shut down, we did a sort of Legion of Monsters group. So it was me as Baron Blood. My buddy Scott did Cap Wolf, the werewolf version of Cap. Neil, a buddy of his, and his partner Jen, they did Frankencastle and the Bride of Frankencastle. So it was basically, the classic Universal monsters, but all Marvel characters and stuff.
Yeah, which was
awesome. We had the living mummy. Yeah. So
Mark,
I thought was awesome.
Yeah, it's awesome, Mark. I'm gonna say you're a total geek, man. Like seriously.
I am. I mean, look at my house. I got like Lord of the Rings swords and masks.
So real quick, I want to thank everybody, especially on Twitch, Facebook, and YouTube, that's pouring in questions like crazy. Man, I want to pick out a couple, because we do have for you. We do have you for a couple minutes, real quick.
I can. I know that I had an out, but I think I can stay a little longer, because I want to answer people's questions.
Sure.
Okay, good.
One from Patience Niles on Twitch. He says, "What roles do you find to be the most compelling, or the characters you originally meshed with the best?"
Well, I've always been a villains guy. You can see that in my cosplay. Like I'm usually dressed up as the villains, and the villains are usually a lot of fun to play.
Yes.
So yeah, I've always been a bad guy's fan.
That's dope. That's dope. Also from James Chaos on Twitch, he says, which did you enjoy more, you voicing the Paragon option or the Renegade option in Mass Effect?
Well, you have to give them both equal weight, of course, because you never know what people are going to pick. And that was actually one of the challenges, was making sure that, that Jennifer and I both faced, was making sure that you didn't sound like you were having wild mood swings, because somebody might just go all Renegade or all Paragon, but they might be bouncing back between those choices. And you had to make sure that they all neatly meshed together. That said, let's face it, the Renegade interrupts are the most fun, because you get to throw people out of windows and that kind of thing.
And there was also one question that I had that's in line with Twitter. The Twitter name is Tom Liu XO197, I believe. He says, and it's along the lines with Mike. Now I know that you have a pre-pandemic. I know your schedule was so busy, and the same thing with him. How do you kind of balance your schedule? Because with being a voice actor, improv, being improv, and also just a writer, I know one person, and also in comedy, I know one person that does, like, you're a jack of all trades. I know somebody else that does that as well too, like Carlos Alazraqui. He's the voice of the character Spyro the Dragon. He does comedy. He writes as well too. How do you kind of balance your schedule, like, before everything kind of shut down? How'd you balance your schedule with, like, doing this, writing, voice acting, trying to do comedy, and have time for yourself?
I think that's a challenge for anyone in a creative field or in the arts in any way, because, of course, pretty much anyone who's in this field has experienced long patches of drought where it's just like, oh, there's no work, or I've got to, you've really got to scramble sometimes. And then it's either feast or famine. Sometimes you're going to do 12 things at once, but you want to say yes to all 12 of those things, because you're like, well, next month, who knows what's going to be on the plate. So there's not a lot of stability in this life. So I think just by necessity, you learn how to do that. And maybe not effectively, because I've noticed, like, sometimes I've had like a big theater festival followed by, a con, followed by another big show and things like that. And you can just be completely wiped out at the end of it. So I think mostly you just learn to take, okay, now I'm going to take a week off where I just sleep.
Yeah, that's understandable. And then last but not least, everybody's been asking this question, the same question. What kind of advice can you give for those that are aspiring to be like voice actors and actresses?
Well, again, I can only speak to my personal experience, and again, like I got in on the ground floor, over 20 years ago, so I don't know if my info is up to date necessarily, but I always recommend improv as a great tool that can be applied to nearly any branch of performance, and because it's so valuable in voice acting as well, I would say. Again, given our current situation, it might not be as easy to find improv workshops and things like that. But I do know, even just of the companies I know, there are people who are doing improv workshops online, even during all of this. And hopefully, with things starting to look up, it won't be too long before we can start to gather and actually do improv workshops in person and that sort of thing. So improv is always a great way. And pretty much, everywhere. Improv seems to be everywhere these days. So there's probably going to be a local group that offers workshops and that sort of thing. So I'd say take an introductory workshop at the very least. It might not necessarily be for you, but you can stick your toes in and get an idea if it might be.
Now, one of the things I want to jump into before we get into your upcoming projects, one of the things I want to cover is you've done some cult following films. Star Trek New Voyages, and for example, and Star Wars Bucketheads, which I love. Let's talk about that real quick, because you've been doing that kind of work as well. And again, I was surprised when I saw Buckethead. I was like, wait a second, that's more. And I'm like, oh wow. And the fact that you're able to cross, again, as a fan to another fan, to be able to do all these things and showing your fandom and your love. How does that feel to be able to be doing Star Trek New Voyages and then jumping over and doing Star Trek Bucketheads and Star Wars Bucketheads? So let's talk about that real quick.
Well, so Bucketheads, again, they did a fantastic job on that. It is on YouTube. It's Bucketheads: A Star Wars Story, is I believe the name of the first film, and they are currently at work on essentially a series, like a sequel series that will be set, following the events of that. So this was essentially a look at things from just an Imperial grunt side, like somebody who's just like a stormtrooper. This is my job, and I've always been told the rebels are they're bad and things like that. And of course, all my buddies are stormtroopers, so I take it personally when the stormtrooper gets shot. We don't think about it in the screen. They just oh, he shot the stormtrooper, it fell down, but that's somebody's friend. So I came in very late in that project. They'd already shot it all. It looked amazing. The Marco and Andy contacted me from Transmute Pictures and said, we'd really like you to essentially do a voiceover in this, because all the stormtroopers are wearing helmets, so that's easy enough. And Steve Davey, the guy who actually played my character on set, he had to do all the hard work. He had to do all the running around in the woods, jumping and landing while wearing stormtrooper armor. He's shown me he's got permanent welts and scars, and it's just yeah, I got that doing that scene. So it was very, very easy for me. So I just had to go into a booth, and they sent me a rough cut as well. And even before the effects were finished, I could tell this is going to look amazing. So I was only too happy to sign on to that project. And as I say, there's subsequent stuff coming from Bucketheads, and it did very well on the festival circuit and played at Dragon Con and various other places. It's the sort of thing that I'm always glad to do. I also did a Mass Effect fan film, Red Sand. Yeah, Red Sand was the one that I did. Okay. Yeah. And that was actually the Institute of Advancing Technology in Arizona, which was actually a class project. Paul DeNegris, who was the kid's teacher, got a hold of me. They were very accommodating. They managed to put off the filming that they wanted to do for a few months, and I found a hole in my schedule, and I was only too happy to go down and do that, because I used to do fan films before I got this gig. As I say, a friend of mine did a Spider-Man fan film back in 2000 that I was part of, and nice. I get to do a little cameo as Dr. Doom. But it was more of a humorous cameo. It was basically it was on a TV in the background. Dr. Doom was being interviewed like as a specialist on supervillains. So yeah,
And
it was a lot of fun.
And then also with Star Trek New Voyages, you had a lot of fun on there doing the sets and everything else and makeup.
Star Trek Continues. Yeah, I was.
Star Trek Continues. Okay.
Yeah, it was. I mean, that's a show that it basically completely recreated original Star Trek, like down to the lighting, down to the style of makeup, and I got to play an established character, Sub Commander Tal, who is a Romulan, and he's appeared in the original series, so I got to basically recreate that role. I was very honored to be on there, and I got to do my scene is with Grant Imahara as Sulu. Yeah. And so that was really gratifying. I'd known Grant from conventions before. He was an amazing guy, and
miss Grant a lot.
Yeah. And funnily enough, I mean, we weren't actually on set the same day because I was in a Romulan ship and he was on the bridge of the Enterprise. But when it's all cut together, I'm very glad that I got to have that scene with Grant.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. So I want to talk about your upcoming projects and your other things that you got coming up. Can you tell the audience what you got coming up next?
Well, because of the pandemic, I found myself doing quite a bit of RPG-based streaming, and so that seems to be what I do a lot of the time these days. I've also got a podcast, so I'll start with the podcast. It's called Stitch of Fate, a podcast by night. We're in our second season right now, and we have a Patreon, and we've been very gratified to see our supporters say that they wanted to see more of it. It's a Vampire the Masquerade actual play. It is a podcast, so it's not live, it's edited, and that is basically available anywhere you find a podcast. It's on all major platforms, and new episodes drop every Friday morning Eastern Time. I'm also currently doing a RPG stream with Idle Champions of Forgotten Realms. They were nice enough to put one of my characters that I played in Baldur's Gate Enhanced Edition, Baloth the Entertainer, who is a insane drow sorcerer, who is chaotic evil, but somehow he's managed to become a team player because we're, along with a bunch of other folks, B. Dave Walters is our dungeon master, Christina Ariel is playing Ariza, and we've actually been doing a little show on the Idle Champions Twitch together. But now we and some other folks, Aaron M. Evans, and also Mr. Luke Gygax, son of Gary Gygax, playing his legendary character, Melf. And we're all characters in the Idle Champions game, and now we've taken those characters and we're playing actual D&D with B-Dave. So that's every Monday, and that's on the Codename Entertainment Switch. And I should plug tomorrow, we've got the final game of Mass Effect Mercs, which is a reskinned 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons game set in the Mass Effect universe. And I am playing, if you remember the Biotic God, Niftu Cal, who was the character that I played in Mass Effect 2, I'm playing a character who's very similar to him. He's a very powerful Biotic Volus. It's been a lot of fun so far. We've had some hilarious sessions, including one where all our characters went to a group therapy painting session undercover. That was trying to uncover a Cerberus ring. But our final game will be tomorrow. I believe that'll be at 10 a.m. Pacific, and that's on the Roll For It Twitch. So yeah, I'm doing a lot of rolling of dice and pretending to be characters on various Twitch streams these days.
That's cool.
Awesome.
And of course, there's a little thing called the Mass Effect Legendary Edition that's coming out very shortly.
A little thing, yeah.
Yeah, that's just our little thing.
It's a little thing.
Is there anything, Mark, before we go, is there anything you want to say to the fans out there that are watching and to anyone else who loves the work that you do?
Well, I want to thank you all for playing. And those of you who haven't had a chance to play Mass Effect yet, I hope you enjoy the remaster.
All right. All right.
Hey, you know, it's so funny, too, because the chat is saying they love it. They say, hey, Mark is a D&D nerd confirmed. They love it, man. So they
I'm glad to hear.
But before we let you go, Mark, you got to say the famous line, dude. You got to say the famous line before we let you go.
I'm Commander Shepard, and this is my favorite stream on the Citadel.
Yes, dude.
Is that the one? Or was it I Should Go?
There you go. Thank you. I will take them both. I love it, man.
Mark, it could also be we'll bang okay, even though I don't actually say that in the game.
True.
But I have written that on Mass Effect merchandise as much as any actual line that I've been paid to say. Yeah.
Mark, I'm so happy we brought you back. Like, seriously, thank you so much, Mark.
Thank you for your
taking
time.
the time, seriously, to come out with.
No. Thank you very much for having me, folks. And have a good one. I hope you all enjoy playing the remaster as well.
Oh yeah,
we'll do.
Absolutely.
Mark Meer, ladies and gentlemen. Mark, thank you so much, man. Seriously.
Yep. So long. Good to see you. Take care, everybody, and stay safe.
Thank you.
Absolutely. You too. You too. Oh man, that is so awesome. Like, seriously, guys, this was a fun stream for all of us, man. We had to do a special stream, but we ain't gonna leave you guys hanging. We're gonna do our end game crash before we end this show. Of course, you gotta please share the stream to all of your friends in the game community so they won't miss any of this epic information from Mark Meer that he shared today. You gotta share with everybody, and don't forget to follow our other social media outlets: Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, and Twitch at PTC Gaming Show. Even send us your questions that we want to talk about on the next show at PTCGamingShow at gmail.com. And most importantly, we have a community that's just for you called PTC Nation. That's right, PTC Nation. You can share your gaming news, your gaming memes, questions us to answer on the next show, gaming polls, videos, your Twitch channels, your YouTube, Facebook gaming channels. Post your gamer out. You can post anything you want. Listen, PTC Nation is the channel for you so that we can all pass the control together. Mark Meer, again, thank you so much, man, for jumping in with us. You are, like, seriously, you are the amazing person, dude. I got to have you back again, like, maybe later on in the future. Like, seriously, we got to have you back again.
Yeah. Thanks for having me, Mark.
Absolutely.
And we will see you soon, and hopefully, but hopefully there's a Dragon Con before too long. We can all, cosplay
Fingers
it.
crossed. Fingers crossed.
Yeah, hopefully. I mean, we got to just remember, people, wear your mask and just stay 6 feet away from people. So that's what you got to do. Again, ladies and gentlemen, I am McNux. This is Civic Minded Smoke, and for Mark Meer, we like to say, as always, this is Pass Controller. Get good, ladies and gentlemen. Get good.
Peace and hair grease, y'all. Peace and hair grease. Thanks so much, man.
No, my pleasure. Thanks for having me. And as I say, stay safe, and we'll talk to you soon.
And we'll be posting this in a little while, and everything else will be 24 around.
Sure thing, yeah.